As the fate of the Stellantis plant still hangs in the balance, Belvidere could have new hope on the horizon for a growing economy. 23 News reporter Jake Pearson talks with city leaders about how adding a second Midwest Refrigeration warehouse could bring more jobs to the area.
As contract negotiations between Stellantis and the auto union heat up, Belvidere chases down opportunities to cool down tensions, opportunities that include up to 50+ new jobs.
This would be a great benefit for Belvidere.
Belvidere leaders won't wait on Stellantis and the auto workers union to reach an agreement about a future in the city. Instead, leaders prioritize a proposal of their own.
We have to be able to compete, and we want to use every mechanism at our disposal.
Midwest Refrigeration Services wants to strengthen its reputation in Illinois by adding another warehouse. Belvidere is a top contender.
Logistically, we're a prime candidate for a project like this that will help employ 50 or more employees. Their investment will be great, and north of $2 million.
But it won't be easy, as the city of Murrells is locked in competition with another city in Wisconsin to earn rights to build the facility.
Belvidere competes well. We are growing, and I think that they're doing a good job recruiting businesses here.
To win over the refrigeration plant, City Council plans to apply for the Community Development Block Grant, which would award Belvidere a $1 million fund. But the benefits of the money extend far beyond gaining a potential new business partner.
The block grant is to facilitate water and sewer, to facilitate other companies that may come in in the future. We are expanding into lands that are unknown to us at this point.
Now, with the addition of the Metro passenger rail announced by Governor Pritzker this summer, sources say MRS could expand even more, bringing an even bigger surplus of jobs to the city.
If Belvidere wins the rights to build and operate the warehouse, it will be located on Irene Road near its intersection with Bates Road.